Mission is to engage students in a world-class educational experience that prepares them to be well-rounded, ethical, innovative, creative, productive, and adaptive citizens who will shape our global society. Move on to an approval of the agenda for the April 4th regular meeting of the Board of School Trustees. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Marley.
Second.
Second by Mr. Karpik. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, our agenda carries. Moving on to approval of the minutes from the March 7th regular meeting of the Board of the School Trustees.
Move approval.
Moved by Dr. Springer.
Second.
Second by Mr. Schott. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the minutes carry. Unfinished business, we have none that I'm aware of. Academic achievement, we'll move on to student recognition, our RDP Way to Go Awards presented by Shelby Johnson.
Good evening. At this time, we'd like to recognize our Westside Way to Go Award recipients. This award was created to recognize students who exemplify good citizenship qualities that are essential to our school board mission. At this point, we'll have Amber come up. Dr. Taggart will introduce the elementary school students, and then if you can wait up here, I'll get a picture, and then I'll email it to you later this evening.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. I have the honor of celebrating two of our students this evening. Let's have Tala come on up. This is Ms. Tala Hassan. Tala is enthusiastic about learning, does her personal best, and participates often during class. She has a wonderful sense of humor and is always ready with a laugh and a quick smile. Tala goes out of her way to show others kindness. She helps her friends in a caring manner, helping them feel supported, never making them feel badly if they need a hand. She is respectful to her teachers and to her classmates and brings joy to others every single day. Let's celebrate Tala. Fia, come on over. This is Fia Muhammad. Fia came to West Lafayette Elementary School at the beginning of 3rd grade. She came to our school very timid and nervous, which was completely to be expected, given the fact that she had just come to the United States. While it did take her a while to come out of her shell, so to speak, it has been so fun to watch her gain confidence and blossom in her classroom. Recently, a new student joined her class, and she has been a very good friend to him, helping him learn the routines of the classroom and showing empathy to him as he experiences new situations. Fia is a hardworking student and a kind and compassionate friend. She has come such a long way, both socially and academically, in such a short amount of time, and is a perfect example of perseverance and resilience. Miss Fia.
Congratulations.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Margaret Saros, the principal at West Lafayette Intermediate School, and I'd like to have Scarlett please come up. Her teacher, Mrs. King, has the following to share about Scarlett, Scarlett attends to all work with vigor and curiosity. She also can sense when people need help and then helps. She is the first to welcome new students. She can be quiet at times, but when she speaks, it's always kind and gentle. She is such a great friend to all around her. Academically, she works hard and demonstrates this with her outstanding grades. She is a true pride of West Lafayette, and we're very proud to honor Scarlett Leachman tonight. I don't see our other student, Annika Patel, I don't think is here. Let me go ahead and share about her. We'll get her award to her, of course. Annika is a student in Mr. Higginbotham's class, and he had the following to share about her. Annika is a great student who has quickly earned her respect of her classmates. She was elected one of the class student council representatives. Annika has also shown great effort in her schoolwork. She has no missing assignments, has no late assignments, and is currently earning great grades with her classes. Annika asks questions when she doesn't understand something, but also to dig deeper into what she is studying. We are so proud of her and her work. Let's give her a round of applause that hopefully... It was like magic. She disappeared. I loved it. This is for you. Let me get a picture. And I also want to share the good words that I just shared about you. Yeah. But let's start with a picture of Mrs. Johnson.
Beautiful, right away.
Good evening. I'm Ron Schreiner, principal of Senior High School, and really happy tonight to be able to talk about two of our students. First, Nicole Shostran. Nicole, if you would come up. And Nicole was nominated by Mrs. Hart, and these are the comments, Nicole, that Mrs. Hart wanted me to share. She really would like to nominate you for the Westside Way to Go Award because you always show up to class with a smile and a positive attitude. And even when, maybe it's a bad day, you always find a way to work through the struggle and find something positive in the day. So Nicole is inquisitive and asks the best questions. She searches for connections between our class material and examples she's seen in other places. Most importantly for Mrs. Hart, Nicole, she knows you're a great helper, and she knows that she can count on you to assist those around her and to be a good teammate with others in the groups that you have. So she's really glad to present you or honor you with this award. So congratulations. And next, Jordan, if you'd come up. Everybody's here. It's great. And this is Jordan Ratliff. And Jordan, you were nominated by Mrs. Byrne, who is a student teacher this semester. And her comments include that Jordan shows so much persistence and dedication in class. And you are always such a positive attitude regarding assignments, and you maintain a good sense of humor even when assignments are hard. Aside from academics, Mrs. Byrne wants everyone to know that Jordan shows kindness and respect towards teachers and classmates, and she's very proud of that. So your determination and positive attitude makes him a great role model for classmates. So thank you very much, Jordan. Thank you, guys.
As always, these awards are a great joy for us to get to have the start of our meeting. They're why we do what we do. So thank you for being here and all you do in our community. As riveting as our meetings are, this is a great opportunity. If you would like to leave, you are welcome to do so. We will not be offended. But thank you for being here tonight. You're welcome to stay too if you want. But it's okay to go. All right, so we will move on to communication from the audience. We have one person signed up today, Mrs. Mumford, to speak on an agenda item.
So I'm Daisha Mumford. I live on 719 Pike Street. I'd like to comment on agenda item number 5, the school board policy revisions. It's important for community members to be able to share their views on proposed policy changes with school board members before the board votes. One way to do this is to sign up to speak at the beginning of the school board meeting. However, I'm unable to provide any comments on the proposed policy revisions because the school board has not revealed which policies you are revising. The agenda just says that you will be revising unspecified policies. The revisions you will vote on later in this meeting could just be to fix a minor typo, or the revisions you will vote on today could be something major that will impact my child's education. By keeping the proposed policy revisions secret up until the moment when the board votes to approve the change, you are preventing any community input. I am grateful that you have now decided to share the school board packet after the meeting. This allows the community to be better informed about the school board's decisions. However, you need to share the packet before the school board meeting so school board members can seek community input before the vote. I encourage you to apply the first reading, second reading approach to all policy changes so that the vote takes place at least one meeting after the proposed policy change is first presented publicly. This allows the community several weeks to provide comments before the vote. Making the information public and allowing people time to comment is how representative democracy is supposed to work. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Mumford. Moving on to item number 3, independent financial consultation, and Dr. Greiner.
So you've seen the proposal for financial consultation, the agreement proposed to you by Mr. Reuter and Mr. Marley, Mrs. Witt, Mr. O'Holt, and I met with Mr. Reuter, and we've shared information with the board. It is my recommendation that the board vote to approve entering into an agreement where Mr. Reuter will develop a fiscal plan, reviewing revisions or revenues and expenditures of all major funds, providing a briefing and discussion concerning the financial points and the consideration of the district with regard to revenue and expenditures, as well as report out based on findings and consult accordingly.
Can I get a motion, please?
So moved.
By Mr. Schott, second by Mr. Marley, and discussion. Questions? Do we have any? Okay. Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. Moving on to item 4, new school board policy, second final reading, and Dr. Greiner.
So school board policy 4425 is a new policy, and we are in our second reading. It is regarding nursing mothers. We've received no questions or concerns or clarifying statements. It is my recommendation that the board vote to approve that new policy this evening.
So moved.
Get a motion for Mr. Marley, second by Dr. Springer. Any questions regarding this policy? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. Moving on to item 5, school board policy revisions. Dr. Greiner.
There are 4 policies up for revision. 3 of those policies are simply word modifications. 5310, focusing on health services. 8500, focusing on food service. 8606, electronic devices and transporting students. There's no change in meaning or purpose of the policy, but there are word modifications. And then there is an addition to 8510, wellness, which states that the school will provide free water during lunch to students as well as throughout the day. We do have water stations where students can fill up their water bottles and/or go to fill up cups for water. But in addition, we will continue to have bottled water that is chilled available for purchase like has been the case. It is my recommendation that the board vote to approve policy 5310, 8500, 8606, 8510 in their revised form.
Can I get a motion, please? Moved by Dr. Springer.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Austin. Any questions, discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries.
Thank you.
Going to move on to item 6, ESER 3, and Mr. Olhout.
Thank you. We have several items to propose to you today under the auspices of ESER 3 funding. Under technology access, we're proposing that the purchase of 2 spare Chromebooks per classroom at the junior-senior high school to supplement those Chromebooks that are in the loaner kiosk for when students may forget their device or it's not charged. And this falls under the ESER budget under technology access. The quote was included in the board information. The 2 spare Chromebooks per classroom comes to $40,256. Also under technology access, we're proposing an annual subscription to Read and Write software. This software enhances English and writing skills for students all across the achievement bands and needs. This software, we would have universal access in the district for $41.68 per year. That quote was also included in the board packet. We're also proposing a summer Jumpstart program for grades K through 5. This is a program, invitation program for rising 1st through 6th graders whose test scores show significant learning loss. The program will take place over 2 weeks in July and early August, 3 hours per day, staffed by our teachers and employees. There was a detailed cost estimate provided in board information, which comes to approximately $57,000 per year over a 2-year period of funding. Under mental health services and special education, we're proposing a contractual agreement with Bretwell Behavioral Consulting. This contract will provide our district with a board-certified behavioral analyst to assist our behavioral therapists with intervention strategies to assist students working through behavioral issues at school. This is an $18,000 annual agreement, and that agreement was provided in board information as well. Finally, under ESER 3, we're proposing the creation of a mental health therapist position that will allow counselors and administrators in each building to provide temporary and emergency mental health care to students. For the time being, for a 2-year period, the position is funded under ESER 3, and continuation beyond the grant period will be contingent upon future board approval. But we do believe that this service will be welcome and supported in the community. There was a job description provided in the packet and is posted also on Frontline as an anticipated opening. So we ask your consideration and approval for these ESER 3 initiatives.
Okay, can I get a motion, please? Moved by Mrs. Alston.
Second.
Second by Mr. Schott. Questions, discussion? Dr. Yin?
Yeah. So yeah, they are great programs, and I wonder for the Jumpstart, and according to the file, is also the communication with Dr. Grainer is only for summer for now. I wonder, by any chance we can provide some sort of after-school remediation for students who need help, and usually if we can, then how it goes. Because it sounds to me, if students can get some ongoing help during the semester, it might be also very helpful.
Yes, I think that's true, and I think that those opportunities do exist with ESER funding going forward. So I'm sure Dr. Greiner will have an opportunity, working with the other principals, to develop that type of programming starting next school year.
Okay, great. It's just something to add. And I think if staffing is an issue, one idea can be we can, invite some high schoolers to help out. Because as far as I know, and many high schoolers have been helping the mass counts kids, and with their preparation for the contest, it went very well. And those high schoolers also got some experience of helping others. It's kind of mutually beneficial, and just a thought.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just to be, so that I understand, needs for students, remediation and support, additional support, that would really start as a conversation between teachers and parents, and then those needs would develop up through the building leadership. Is that the normal course?
Normally, the needs come manifest through teachers who communicate with building administration, and then that percolates up to the central office.
Thank you. That's what I thought, but I appreciate your clarification. Are there any other questions or comments, discussion?
Appreciate Joel Holcomb's work on this. He first introduced the ESSER 3 funding. He stated stipulations and what it could be spent on, and he and the administration has worked hard to provide programs and some personnel that will be a benefit to our school corporation. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. Move on to item 7, the West Lafayette Community School Corporation Health Clinic, and Mr. Olhout.
We had hoped to come to you today with a proposal for starting a health clinic. We've gone through quite a bit of research and legwork to get this going. We are in the final stages, but we were not able to reach an agreement that we were able to provide to you for this meeting. So I'm asking you to table this till May.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I don't know what I'm supposed to say when it's a table. What do I say?
You just moved to table.
No, can I take a motion to table this agenda item for May?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Marley, second by Mrs. Austin. All those in favor, please.
Aye.
Aye. Are there any opposed? Hearing none, this motion carries. We look forward to that in May. I know it's been a lot of work, a lot of wrangling, so thank you. We will move on to the junior senior high school club participation update, and Mr. Schreiner.
Hi, good evening again. And about this time last spring, we were here, maybe not this room, might have been the other school, to discuss a new daily bell schedule with the board. And we've been working with this schedule since August. We've been observing it, making adjustments as needed, and taking a lot of notes, literally and mentally, throughout that time. So back a year ago, we were asked to come back this spring with an update. So the timing is good for that. We're right in the middle of, as Mrs. Sheffield knows, of the master schedule building. And so we're looking at a lot of different things and asking a lot of questions. So what I think I would like to do first is just remind everybody what our goals were at this time last year when we talked to you about a revised schedule. So we'll go through a list where we were last year. We wanted to support the value of student clubs by establishing a club time during the 7:50 to 8:15 window with that new starting time. We wanted to support the ability of students seeking academic help to also utilize that early morning time. Another goal we had was to continue the improvements in student safety that began in 2020 and 21 with the closed campus lunch policy. Another goal was to move from 4 to 3 lunch periods, which we believed we could do successfully and safely, and we found that was the case this year. Other goals would continue to coordinate closely with the food services department, and thanks so much again to Courtney and Ivan and their entire team, and also our custodial team, which together did a phenomenal job providing not only consistent menu options throughout the lunch periods, but a clean facility for each lunch period. So our goal there was to have C lunch look like A lunch, and we believe we've been able to do that. We also wanted to encourage equity, student equity at lunch for all students, with a policy that prohibited carry-out restaurant food being brought to school by students. And we've appreciated the students' respect and support for that, that concern that we had for equity. And also, finally, not maybe, but a short list of goals we hope to do was to be supportive of our busy junior, senior high school students' lives outside the school day in so many activities and work. And we wanted to do that with a slightly earlier dismissal time. So those are some of the goals we had last year. I would like to review a little bit about what the feedback looked like, that process that you wanted us to examine as the year went along. And I'll start with the fall for staff and student feedback in the fall. Going from the previous year with just 70% of students attending in person, starting this fall, we went back to nearly very close to 100% of junior, senior high students in the building all the time. That in itself was a big adjustment. And we've been listening to staff and students throughout this time in the fall. At the start of the second quarter in that fall semester, we asked staff in an October department morning PD session to discuss and give us feedback on the challenges they were finding with student learning now, and that everyone was back in school. And from those notes, we learned that student engagement was a top concern across the faculty. That's something we heard in the fall, and we've continued to hear as the year has progressed. At that time, we also surveyed teachers, and 2/3 of those who responded reported seeing at least one student per day in that early academic assistance time. So that was some information we got in October. In the spring semester, shortly after the start of second semester, we began a more formal process to ask staff and students for their feedback, and more importantly, I think, to encourage more concrete suggestions. So we've had a semester, we've listened to some feedback, so we're starting to ask, what are your suggestions for improvement going forward after 2 years of COVID? And what are some ways that we can start thinking now in the spring semester about improvements for school life in 22 and 23? And we did that, I think, in some unconventional, at least for us, at least for an old principal, to get into. We did some different things that I think we've enjoyed. And that began in February with small group teacher meetings. And I invited groups of 8 to 12 teachers to meet with me on one of a number of mornings over a 2-week period starting at 7:30 a.m. And attendance for this was completely voluntary. And some who could not meet that early chose another option to meet with me one-on-one, or sometimes 2 or 3 teachers at once during the day. And through that, about 75% of teachers met with me to give me their thoughts and some suggestions for looking ahead. So that was one method we tried, a little different from the past. And in the rest of February and into March, up into right before spring break, we were able to offer department professional day meetings. So literally, if your department chose to do that, we provided subs for the department to have a day to get together and have an opportunity to meet and talk about, and I found out they talked about a lot of things, but our first, and also the larger departments were split into 2 days because we have a couple departments with 10 or 11 in it. So at any rate, we were able to provide subs for them. And we had one primary agenda item, just one for each department, which was to discuss, again, back to ESSER 3, considerations for funding, to discuss learning loss, and also, again, how about some concrete suggestions and brainstorming methods to attack that going forward. And that was our concern that we heard in the fall and continue to hear, so we wanted to make sure that question was asked. And beyond that, the departments reported back discussions on a range of topics. If you get teachers of social studies together, they're, English, and they're all going to find their own things that they want to talk about, and that they thought that was very healthy, and I also was able, and the rest of the administrators as I reviewed notes, to glean a lot, I think, from that. All the departments met, with the exception of one that had some scheduling issues, but even with that one department, I was able to meet individually with those teachers. So we really had 100% participation in that feedback process, and we found that very valuable. So now I've got a stack of notes to review over spring break, which I sort of did, but better yet, I was able to ask others to help me do that. And since spring break, we formed a committee with a faculty committee of 8 teachers who agreed to meet with me for another half day. And they helped to with reviewing, categorizing, and then trying to prioritize some of the information as best we could to try to find common themes that we're hearing from teachers. And I just want to take a second to recognize the teachers who were a part of that, who readily said, yeah, I'd like to do that. I'd like to see what, not just what my department talked about, but what other departments were saying, and see if we can make some progress on ideas for, at this point, looking at next year. And that included Teresa Blaisdell, John Ambrose, Fran Heim, Aaron Wood, Craig Schaefer, and then here tonight, Randy Stute was a part of that process, also Mr. Michael Bennett and Mrs. Creech. Becky was in on that as well. So a few have been able to attend for that tonight. So in addition to pulling them together and helping me sort through what we had here and trying to come up with some coherent suggestions for next year, they also met with me another time that week, and actually keep adding meetings, and they keep showing up. We're going to have another meeting tomorrow morning because I want to stress that we're very much still talking about this. And I think Steve mentioned a minute ago he wasn't quite, ready to present all the information you hope to. And I think I'm in kind of the same position. We're still gathering, but it's very exciting because, the collaboration and the willingness and almost eagerness of the staff to talk about what life has been like with COVID, with learning loss, with the daily bell schedule, all sorts of topics is still happening. So I want to make sure that all of our staff has a chance to do that. We also did speak with students. In March, I held meetings with both the high school student council and the principal student advisory committee. And both groups, not unlike the teachers, had lots of opinions to share and questions about this school year and some suggestions on, where we might want to go for next year. So back to the committee, they had one other function that was very, very important besides the meetings that I've had with them, and we'll continue to have perhaps maybe just 1 or 2 more in April as we get closer to where we're headed. But last Monday morning, members of the faculty committee, so the folks that are here and the others that I mentioned, each of them led a department meeting. We didn't have a meeting of 75. We had department meetings, which people have reported appreciating, again, having those opportunities to meet in those smaller groups. And each of them led a department PD session to present to their colleagues about what the committee's been talking about the previous weeks. And this resulted in 2 recommendations that I want to share with you that we believe we're going to arrive at for the 22 and 23 school year. And so in reviewing the results of these department meetings, these are the 2 themes or areas that we're focused on now to try to identify and continue to work with teachers to implement over the next month or so in April. And one of these is to identify key WL core values that we should expect, or we believe we should expect from all students in a refocus, so to speak, of school when we return in August. So taking the chaos of the last 2 years, and I don't think we would want to take the time, and we're probably all tired of talking about it anyway, to get into what that's all been like, but to try to reinstill some values that teachers want and believe, and veteran teachers in West Lafayette have missed in the last couple of years. They're working on what that means, but That's one concept, is the core values. The second theme that we're committing to working out this spring is to find revisions to the daily bell schedule for 22-23. And from both the student club members and faculty club sponsors, for example, this is one example, we have heard that while the 7:50 to 8:15 morning time for club functions has been somewhat positive, unfortunately, it is falling short of what we had hoped for when we were talking about plans for that last spring in terms of attendance and ability, in some cases, willingness of students to participate that early in the morning, perhaps. With that said, for 22-23, we are planning to have a student activity period which will occur during the regular school day, 1 day per week. Something, again, maybe other schools, you've seen this, but it's new for us to look at identifying a day of the week where we have a student activity period built in, as opposed to having it before school. Another aspect of this would be the faculty have reported about the same or somewhat fewer students attending for academic help before the start of the school day. So we're continuing to work with teachers, and we'll be talking to the committee again tomorrow, actually, with faculty to ways that faculty to increase opportunities for students to get that academic help that they want, and whether they like it or not, they need it. And so trying to find other ways and times of the day to do that. A third feature of, as we're talking about this, is that we intend to maintain the closed lunch over the 3 lunch periods, as we have had now 2 years of experience with that. But the exception would be we would return to lunches being the same length as class periods. So there was obviously a lot of people that wanted to see that. I think, to be fair, that not just the kids, the adults as well. And we believe we found a way to do that, and there are a lot of advantages to that as well, to having a longer lunch, which is what we're saying. One is that we can eliminate the need for the split lunch that did lead to disruptions in class planning. So those are some of the things that teachers, students reported that we think we're acting on. We're just not quite ready to show you exactly what that looks like. So as an administrative team, we're committed to both the reintroduction of WL values, core values, and revisions to the daily bell schedule. Both are intended to help us refocus in August on what it means to teach and learn at our school. I want to thank the board for your consistent support of what we do. Someday soon, I think we all hope that there will reach a point where we can stop prefacing so many conversations with because of COVID. But the impact of the pandemic on schools is I think, well documented nationally, and it is very clear that our junior, senior high school faculty can see it, they can feel it in their classrooms, they can't always identify it, but they know what it looks like. And I just want to thank you as a board for giving us space and time to adjust and change. We know that we will never find a perfection, especially in a business as imperfect as the school business. We also accept that it's unlikely that we're going to make everyone happy, but on behalf of our staff, I thank you for your trust and our efforts, and we're going to try to keep getting there, even if it's not likely to happen. We'll keep working on it. I just also want to thank our faculty for hanging in there with us and our students during a couple of very truly forgettable school years. And after many years of observation, I just always remain impressed with and inspired by their talent, their positive energy, and the service that these teachers give to their profession and their kids. And it is the basis of our students' success, I think we would all agree, over a long period of time. So I hope this update helps you follow where we've been since last spring and what we're thinking and what we are committing to do next year. And yet, out of respect for our faculty, the timing didn't quite work for me to be able to share, tactile documents. Here's what values look like. Here's what the bell schedule looks like. But I do want you to hear that we are committing to those things that I just described, and we will sort that out very soon. we're at a point where, as I mentioned before, we're in that master schedule building season. So Mrs. Sheffield and lots of people want to know how all that fits in, but we're confident that we can get there. And I expect to have more specifics very much so within the next couple of weeks. And my plan is to share those with Dr. Greiner and get his advice on, sharing that more broadly. But I want to get there with our staff first before I do more with that. So, okay.
Mr. Schreiner, for the update. I appreciate the follow through on that. Does anybody have any questions for him before he is seated?
I really appreciate that you seek feedback from teachers, parents, and the students. And I wonder, by any chance, we can kind of collect data systematically regarding, for example, the equity issues, and to see how many students are participating in those clubs and seeking help from teachers, and also kind of systematically seek feedback from more students, and before we finalize the next revised schedule.
I suppose, in what I've described to you, I hope in my mind that's data at its purest, which is to ask and have conversations directly with people. What are you seeing? What is happening? And they're giving us examples. It's probably not as scientific or as sterile as a poll or a survey, but I think we've gotten very heartfelt responses from our staff. Students throughout the year have shared information, and my thinking is I've got to operate a school building, and I have to have the professionals, the teachers, with us on that. There are only 3 or 4 administrators, and there aren't enough. We don't have enough bodies to do it. So we're seeking and working on buy-in from our staff primarily, and listening to what they're saying.
Okay, so it's not like possible to, for example, conduct a survey while the Skyward, things like that. So
I suppose anything's possible with surveys in that world. I know in the time that I'm given and that we as a school are given to make planning for next year, again, my approach is not, as you're describing it, I'm sure what you're saying is possible, but I'm telling you that I feel like we're getting some very solid and important feedback from our staff and from students. So I plan to utilize that and have something to share soon.
okay, thanks.
Thank you very much for stepping from what is possible to what is prudent. Okay. We can have that conversation at the end, if that's okay. There's a period for questions at the end of the meeting, communication. Moving on to item number 8, external transportation provider, and Mr. Caldwell. For those of you who are not familiar with Mr. Caldwell, he's not a normal person. He's quite normal, but he's not normal at our meetings. This is Doug Caldwell. He's the Director of Transportation for our school corporation.
As you all know, on Tuesday of last week, we were informed that City Bus can no longer provide transportation for our junior, senior high school students. So that basically put West Lafayette Transportation in a situation where we had to explore all the options. To start out with, and a lot of people don't realize what all we do in transportation, and this is just our yellow bus, excluding the city buses. Some of the things that we do, I go over the routes we have at each of the schools, along with the junior, senior high school routes. We have students that go to Linwood Preschool. We have 9 students that attend school outside of our district in Lafayette District. We have 2 students that attend Tippecanoe County School Corporation buildings. We have currently 1 McKinney-Vento qualified student, and we, as of now, that has changed as more, 133 plus extra details that we do, and that includes your athletics, your field trips, music clubs, and everything that we transport those folks to. That gives you an idea of what we currently do with our equipment and staff. You go to the next slide, please. City Bus provides transportation to junior, senior high schools, average about 460. They have 7 routes, and they run an athletic tripper. So they bring an extra bus in the afternoon to pick up students who are athletes that go to tennis, softball, or anything that involves the athletic complex. out on Cumberland. All their vehicles are public transportation. They're non-yellow school buses. No stop arms, no traffic control devices or anything on those buses. I believe I'm close on this cost, about $151,000 per year, basically. The tripper service for the athletes costs an extra $100 a day for that service. And there again, they can no longer provide transportation in the 2022 school year. Slide, please. So that's the challenges facing transportation in the 2023 school year with City Bus. Currently, we have 2 buildings, the intermediate school and the high school. They both want their students at 7:45. So it's impossible. We just don't have the staff or the equipment to be at both buildings. The athletic tripper service for spring sports is something we got to take into consideration. And what we're trying to do is to ensure minimal disruption to schools, staff, students, and parents. One of the options we looked at, for yellow buses, I can't have folks standing up on a yellow bus like they do on a city bus. They may have 40 seats on there and can stand 20 kids. We can't do that. So we would have to add 2 buses in order just to cover the high school routes. So if you purchased 9 new buses, the pros of that, you'd have sufficient equipment for the routes. The cons is there is no way I could staff 9 routes and pay a driver, train a driver, and pay him an hour in the morning and an hour in the afternoon to come in and run bus service for the junior, senior high school. You're not going to find that employee out there in transportation. If you think you can, please let me know. Yeah, I'll gladly interview him. We do not have the space to park 9 more buses. I currently park buses here at Happy Hollow. I park buses at the athletic complex, and I park 2 buses at the Tippecanoe School Corporation Service Center on Elston Road. Some of the cons, the staffing, the parking, we would have an increased maintenance cost, adding 9 more buses. And then the one-time expenditure, if you bought 9 new buses, you're right around that $1 million range for 9 new buses. We also looked at and explored and have information on an outside contractor coming in and taking over the entire transportation department for the school. First Student, Durham, Miller Transportation, those are companies that come in and run school transportation. Looked at some of the pros. They would manage everything that does all aspects of transportation. You would no longer need TSC maintenance. We do not have a service center. We do not have a bus garage. We do not have a bus mechanic. We currently contract that through the Tippecanoe Schools Corporation. You could do away with that because those services will bring their own mechanic in. They will purchase or lease our current equipment, so you wouldn't just have to outright set that and no use out of it. They come in and do that. One of the cons is when we reached out to some of these companies and kind of gave them a little bit of information on what we were and what we needed, none of them would be able to start until January of 2023. So the fall of 2022, you have no transportation for the junior, senior high school or any buildings if you choose to go that way. You'd be locked into a long-term contract. Most of those run on a 2 to 4, some I've seen 5-year contracts when I did my research and everything. You do not have a bus maintenance facility, so they will not provide your mechanic. Part of the deal with that providing fleet maintenance is you have to provide the building for them to maintain the buses, and we don't have that currently at West Lafayette. Cooperation between school districts. I have a good relationship with both TSC and Lafayette, and you'll get into a little bit here later. I'll kind of explain, but we help each other out in transportation needs and everything. And I'm not sure, as an outside contractor, TSC would still want to perform the maintenance on a First Student school bus. The other option is a 3-tiered bell schedule. That will allow transportation to stay under the West Lafayette School Corporation umbrella. Yellow buses would do it all. Junior and senior high school kids would be in yellow buses now. I think we can do it with minimal bell time adjustments. You'd have consistency in schedules, times, and drivers. I think one of the top complaints I get from parents of the junior, senior high school is buses late, buses lost, and it's a different driver every day. I can provide consistency in all that, and I think we can do a better job in city bus. Positive driver-student relationships. Right now, we have the elementary and the intermediate school, and I have drivers who had that young man or young lady as a kindergartner, clear up through. And I think when you build positive relationships, your behavior on the bus goes a lot better too, when they know the bus driver for that long. Staff retention, we would have to, currently our bus drivers are paid 4.25 hours a day, which is not much. I mean, most paras work longer than that. We have AM and PM. We would add the high school routes on the AM and PM, so that would bump, I think we'd be right in that 6.25 hours a day. So then you're talking, we could look at benefits package for drivers. That's good for driver retention, and working a little bit, but making a little bit more. Some of the cons, we would have to add an additional bus and an additional driver. For the high school route, we would still run our 7 large yellow buses. I would need to add 2 routes to cover all the high school needs. I can do that with an extra driver and another bus, and then the Greater Lafayette Career Academy, she picks up at the high school at 7:40 and does the shuttle for those classes all day. I have designed a route for hers where she could pick up a high school route, a short one, both AM and PM, and help out with that load, take some of the load off the yellows there. You would have additional fuel costs, of course, less flexibility for after-school departures. We'd have to tweak and change the current bell schedules a little bit. We would consolidate some of the bus stops, and currently we're able to provide a shuttle service for a lot of staff children in between our schools. We would not be able to do that on a 3-tier bell system. If you look on the left is their current bell times for the junior, senior high school, the intermediate, and the elementary school. Those are current. If you look at proposed, 8:10 to 3:05 on the high school, intermediate bell schedule doesn't change. And if you look at the elementary, 9 to 3:35, their day is extended a little bit at the end there too. Nothing set in stone, but like as of Tuesday, when they informed us that they were no longer going to be able to provide the service, we had to start looking at something. And that would be it there.
Okay, so this is a little different than I might do this, but this is an opportunity, we're not voting tonight. Board members, it's an opportunity to ask questions of Mr. Clausen and kind of understand what's happening and give feedback. So ultimately, Mr. Clausen and Dr. Greiner Mr. Caldwell, Dr. Greiner can work together on finalizing a decision. So that's the hope for tonight's conversation. So anyone have any questions for Mr. Caldwell?
I do.
Amy, Mrs. Austin.
Nice to meet you. The first question I have is, under the proposed schedule, what time in the morning would the earliest student be picked up under general education? Because I know that you transport.
Yeah, the related services is an entirely different animal. So we would.
Earliest and latest.
Yeah, currently our earliest is 7:06 for the intermediate, and then that would bump back to 7 o'clock. In our high school, the extra route with the academy driver, that first student, in our transportation in our district, the most consumption of time is Happy Hollow, Soldiers Home Road, that stretch there, River Road. So she would have to pick up a high school student at 7:12. And then she would drop shortly before 7:40 because she runs the academy. We leave the high school currently at 7:40 with the academy because they're on TSC school calendar.
And as far as in the afternoon?
You would go to our elementary school. Currently, we're about 3:56, 3:54. That would move to the 4:05. So there's not a huge time difference in early to late.
Okay. The second question I have is, under the proposed schedule, is the amount of instructional time the same? Or has that changed?
Probably have to refer to the school's admin. I think the elementary is gaining 5 minutes. And high school, I'm not sure, but I think if you look at the timing, we're close, so their days are almost equal to what the extension.
And I think that's good. Thank you.
Doug, I like the third option. I know we've got a lot more work to do on this, but I've always had some concern about a metro bus line transporting our kids. You know, they don't have stop arms, they don't have flashing lights, they blend in with the other metro lines. There's probably even some confusion on the public's part in terms of whether they should get on that bus or not. My point is, I like the yellow bus control in our hands. I think that's a good combination.
Yeah, busing itself is a traffic control device. They don't have that. They turn on a flasher, pull to the side of the road, where we have the ability to actually stop traffic. Granted, we have stop arm runners. My new buses have a forward-facing camera, so I'm working with the prosecutor's office on it. But yeah, it's a much safer transportation for students than being on the city bus.
And you'll also do the emergency exit drills then for that?
That would be new for the high school. The intermediate and elementaries are happening Thursday. So, thought about today, it's supposed to rain, but didn't do it today. But yeah, they would have to participate in the evacuation.
Mr. Carpet?
Just in the supply chain world we're living in now, in terms of availability, even if it's, how does that look, even for one, if you have to do that, or if you chose to do the 9?
We have our new bus ordered for the next school year,
Right.
but if you look at availability of parts, where we were getting parts the next day, a lot of the stuff for repairs comes out of Whitestown, Zionsville, or Midwest Transit. We could be up to 2 weeks on parts. We had an incident with one of our minibuses that's currently in the shop. We don't expect to get that back until July with body damage.
But if I'm understanding it correctly, then you have the ability, though, still to work with TSC that would still be the plan if these are our
On
buses.
maintenance, yes.
And even if we brought 9 in, I mean, if that, under that scenario.
So, don't quote me, I think it's $3,000 per year per bus on the TSC contract. So it would add.
They could
another
handle the capacity.
They could handle it.
Okay, all right, thank you. Anything else?
Go ahead.
Some school districts offer, like, for students who participate in after-school activities, there's an option to just pick up a late bus that goes through. It's such a small town that, you know, swinging through the main neighborhoods. Is that something that's ever been considered?
So you're talking like an after-school program? Or
Like a,
what?
Bus.
for kids in the French club, and you could, if your parents can't get you can grab that late bus, and you just say, I live here, and they say, okay, and they kind of build the
You
route.
still need to formulate the route and everything off that. I know with the new program we're talking about, before school even starts, we'll be providing transportation, centralized transportation to get those youngsters up into that building and everything for that Head Start program. It depends on, it's tough. If you look at that 133 plus, that's all of my drivers are driving trips to something. So if I assign it to a driver, then, okay, if they got a trip, then I have to find another driver to cover this, cover that. If you look at just assigning it, you get into the, who's going to come in for $20.33, 4:30 every day just to drive, you know, and so it's tough getting individuals to work in that 1 or 2 hours.
And I'm sorry, one more question. Do you have any idea how many staff are going to be affected by the elimination of the inter-school?
I do not. I look at total number, not specifically at the staff. the administration. I could look and get to the schools to try to give you an idea of how many kids that's going to affect in the morning.
Dr. Yin?
Thanks. I have several comments and one question. And first of all, I'd really like to thank you for your service. And I heard many times you have to, especially in winter, you have to get up early to, when it's snow, test out the road and then send us the warning and all school delay or cancellation. I really appreciate that. That's not easy to get up early in the morning and test out the road. And the second, I really appreciate that you present the information on the slides. That's very helpful. And also compare the pros and the cons of different combinations, options. I really appreciate that. That's super helpful. And I just have one question. So for the junior high and the high school, the bell schedule is, for that one, it's the instruction, the starting time of the instruction is 8 to 10. So that means for the club, and the kids need to leave a little bit even more, earlier, right? So right now we built the club time before the instruction. So 8 to 10 is instruction beginning time.
Correct. That would be first hour bell, I'm assuming. We would drop the students off by 7:50 in order for those kids to go through the breakfast line and everything and be in their class.
Okay. Yeah, that's how we make that schedule work for the school, 3 schools. So the drivers have enough time to turn around to pick up another group of kids.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, that looks good. It's really, I think, I don't know, but intuitively, I feel right now the elementary school kids can sleep a little bit longer, basically.
Yeah, and the reason I put those folks last, boy, if you could have listened to radio traffic today, we had to turn a bus around and go back to the school because a student didn't get on. Or a parent, we like our parents to be out for our kindergartners when we drop them off. If there's not a parent out, my driver doesn't let that child off the bus. And they call in on the radio, we try to call the parent, so we're continuing with that child to run a route and have to go back. By having them last, we're pretty much free at the end of the afternoon, instead of under a time constraint. You know, our older kids are pretty good. Intermediate does a great job, bell rings, 6 minutes, we're rolling out of work. And we're hoping that high school can be that way too, because it's a tight schedule to try to keep everybody less disruption in the days.
It's a very thoughtful plan, something. Thanks.
Can I just comment? I agree with what Dr. Yin said. I want to thank Mr. Caldwell because throughout this whole process, he has really been taking notes and brainstorming and communicating with folks, and he's called administrators together and really taken their input and gone back to the drawing board. And he has really focused on trying to keep it as tight as he can, because there are several districts out there that have tiered busing that are much wider. And he has been very conscientious and really focusing on trying to tighten this as much as possible. And I'm just really impressed and thankful for the hard work that Mr. Caldwell has done here.
And I do have one other question for you. I know from my colleagues from other school corporations that driver shortages are really a concern. We've been fairly fortunate here in West Lafayette. Is the idea that more work hours and benefits, is that going to help you from your position?
Yeah, that will, and driver, I'm going to brag on my drivers right now. We have a wonderful group of drivers. I mean, I couldn't ask for a better group. And I've been with a corporation that had 130 drivers. I would take my group off over them any day. They're great. They do well with the students. I sent you a text last week I got from a driver that was really something. She basically said she had the best job in the world.
Yeah.
But driver retention is a big thing, and it's tough. Maybe they like the director, I'm not sure. But right now, we're only 4.25 hours. And in the world of school transportation, you don't get much lower than that. But we've been able to retain our drivers and everything. Normally 6 to 8, some work over 8 hours a day in other corporations. But it's a plus. And if we got to bring new people, some of my folks are getting up there. They're not going to be here forever. me, but yeah, when you can offer them a package like that, and we talked about, if we get to that 6.25 hours, maybe there's some benefits that we could offer. We could offer a vision plan, you know, a dental plan, even if it's supplemental to what they have with the spouse.
Okay. Dr. Springer?
The number of buses. Do you think with the addition of one extra bus that will have sufficient capacity if a bus would break down?
So we have spare.
That's what I wondered.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, we have currently 2 spare buses. Now, initially, this is a conversation for another board meeting, but initially, we would put our newest spare into service for that high school. And since we're not paying city bus, we may be able to look at the bus replacement plan and possibly add a bus to get to where we can have 2. Right now, if I have 2 buses down, then I rent a bus off of TSC.
Any other questions, comments? Mr. Caldwell, Dr. Reiner?
You get like 4 o'clock in the morning on a school day, so.
4 o'clock? I'm normally out at 4. If we're predicted, you know, snowing, then we're out. I'm out, the maintenance is out and start working. It all depends. One of the major things I get is if we delay. And then my phone's ringing, the bus is not here, the bus is not here. We're on a 2-hour delay. And 2 hours from your normal time, then the bus will be there. So, great kids in our district, great kids.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for all you do.
Yeah.
All right, we'll move on to item number 9, Memorandum of Understanding, Alternative Substitute Coverage, and Mr. Olhout.
I believe it was back in January, we had a discussion about some of the limitations on getting substitute teachers into our buildings. And it was brought up at teacher discussion as well. And a proposal was put forward to perhaps look at, especially at the junior, senior high school, and at the other buildings, at the discretion of the principal, maybe offering a stipend to teachers to cover certain gaps in coverage where we may not have a substitute available, and to offer a $25 per duty-free period stipend to do that. And so we actually talked it over with the WLEA. Now, this constitutes collective bargaining, actually, to add something like this, a provision, a memorandum of understanding to do something like this. So in discussing it with WLEA, we went ahead and drafted a memorandum of understanding, and we submitted it to the Indiana Education Employment Relations Board. They have a mechanism for pre-approval to do these types of memoranda of understanding outside the normal bargaining period to make sure that we're within guidelines, and they responded that we were. So the text of the MOU was included in the board packet. It essentially provides a $25 stipend to any teacher who covers another teacher's classroom during a non-duty planning period when that is requested by the principal or the designee. Now, this MOU expires at the end of this school year. It's retroactive to March 11th. So there's been some of this coverage already pending board approval. But we do ask your approval of this MOU.
Can I get a motion, please? Moved by Mr. Shaw.
Second.
Second by Mr. Carpick. Questions, discussion?
So currently, our teachers cannot substitute other teachers?
They can, and some of that does go on informally. The idea here is to offer a little bit of compensation to those teachers who are stepping in on their prep period to do some of this type of coverage.
Okay, great, thanks.
Any other questions? I've discussed this with each of you individually, so I feel like we're pretty good now. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. Move on to item 10, music and STEM summer camps. Mr. Olhow.
Yes, I believe last year the STEM and music camps did not happen because of COVID. So we're getting back to those. This is actually standard operating procedures. So we're asking your approval for the elementary school STEM camp sponsored by Mr. David Brantley, operating from May 31st to June 10th. And this is open to 4th through 6th graders. Tuition per student is $100. Also, the music summer camp for 4th through 8th graders, meeting June 6th through Friday, June 24th, for a fee of $100. So these camps happen on a regular basis. They can be advertised on our website. I know that the sponsors are also interested in advertising those widely. So we ask your approval for those ECA camps this summer.
Can I get a motion, please? Moved by Dr. Springer. Second by Mrs. Austin. Questions, discussion?
Based on my knowledge and experience, those camps are very popular and helpful. And plus, it's much more affordable and for families than many other, camps outside the schools. And so I wonder, in general, what is the procedure for teachers to offer a camp? Let's say, can teacher offer like writing camp or some other camp? So what's it like, who initiated this kind of?
Typically, it's the sponsor who initiates it, the sponsor or sponsors, and then they write up a proposal for what they'd like to offer. And since they're using the school's facilities, they do come to you at the board for approval.
Okay. So teachers can initiate themselves. Do they know that they can do that? I mean, in general,
I'm sure that some do. I don't know that all do.
Okay, yeah, it would be nice. I feel, yeah, because, for many families and especially for younger kids, people are looking for opportunities for kids to get some educational enrichment and also, parents need to work, and if they can put their kids somewhere to learn something, that would be great. So at the same time, if our teachers can get some, financial compensation, that's awesome too. So I feel that it would be nice if more things like this can happen.
Let me just give some past information. Well, currently and in the past, there are teachers at the high school who offer sport camps, 1-2-week sport camps in the summer. And there have been, teachers come up with an idea of what kind of a summer school camp they would like, and then they propose it to the administration and it comes to the board. So we've had many teachers in the past offer a variety of summer camps.
There's been, I know in my time on the board, Dr. Yin, there's been cheerleading, there's been numerous different sports-related ones, as Dr. Springer says, but there have been other teachers come forward with different ideas for that as well. So we'll start to see them now, and then typically there'll be another round of them, and I would expect we'll see more about summer activities in our building. That's probably true.
That's very true. And I think you mentioned in a question earlier too about swimming. And I believe that we'll be hearing in the not too distant future from Mrs. Klinge, the aquatics director, on her anticipated programming. You remember last summer, there were quite a few aquatics activities as well for students, and we expect that to also happen this summer.
Yeah, it would be great. I just feel, if teachers know that they can do this and the parents know that there are opportunities for kids to do and to kind of communicate this information well, it'd be very helpful. Another thing is, so for kids, the families who have difficulty affording some of those camps, do we have any money to help them all, or subsidize or something like especially the ESSER money, probably it's like a budget for something else. I just wonder in general.
When it comes to scholarships, that might be something to ask the individual sponsor of the activity. I know that some of them in the past have offered scholarships. That would probably be the first place to inquire.
Okay, thanks.
Any other question? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. We'll move on to item number 11, declaration of surplus. Mr. Olhout.
We have a 2003 Chevrolet Midbus, which is a diesel bus that is no longer meeting the needs of the school corporation. So you found in the board packet a declaration stating that this was surplus. Mr. Caldwell has been working for some time to try to trade in the bus and or get a quote. He got a quote, unfortunately, from a company that is only able to offer scrap value for the bus at $500. And getting this value allows us then to have to sell the bus because it has an estimated value of less than $1,000. We're able to sell it privately. If we were able to find somebody to pay more than $500, we would obviously pursue that. But the first step is to have the bus declared surplus, and that's the memo, the recommendation of administration.
Can I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Marley.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Austin. Any questions for Mr. Olhout?
Just to clarify, I already asked this question earlier in the email, but so you mean we can still possibly sell it at a higher value?
Yes.
After we pass this surplus and decision? Oh,
Yes, it can still be sold at a higher value, but since it has an estimated value after Mr. Caldwell did his due diligence to get a quote, it can still be sold for higher than this estimated value.
Yeah.
But first, it has to be declared surplus.
Okay, great, thanks. And yeah, right now I heard a used car actually it's popular, but don't know the condition of this car, but yeah, hopefully we can get a better price. Thanks.
Okay, any other questions? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. We'll move on to the Happy Hollow Chiller update and Mr. Olhout.
So our maintenance director, Mr. Daly, has advised us that the chiller unit in this building has reached the end of its serviceable life. It still functions intermittently, but it requires frequent attention and resets from the maintenance personnel when it shuts off during warm weather. Due to its obsolescence, electronic components are no longer available. Per Indiana code, the process for any replacement of this unit would include obtaining architectural and engineering renderings to determine the scope of the work so that bids can be taken for the project. Any plan to replace the chiller would include compatibility with potential remodel of the building in the future. With these bids, the board can then make a determination whether replacing the chiller should be pursued. So administration plans to move forward with obtaining architectural and engineering quotes to determine the feasibility of this project for the board's future consideration.
Can I get a motion, please? I'm sorry, it's just informational, excuse me. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Olhout on this?
I think it's working great. I'm freezing every single month.
Mr. Olhout, Mr. Olhout, just to be clear on this, should the chiller die, the building is still functional
Yes.
and usable.
It's unlike the heat where you obviously have to have heat to prevent pipes from freezing. If the chiller does go out, the building might not be as cool or comfortable, but it's still functional. So we're not asking for an emergency declaration. We're going to continue along this process to get the architectural and engineering quotes and renderings.
And I think I know the answer to this, but have you already spoken with the building's tenants so they understand the situation?
Yes, we've spoken to all of our current tenants. They're aware that we have no guarantees on the chiller this summer. We hope we keep it going.
Any other questions for Mr. Olhout? Okay, we'll move on to the next item, the robotics team and Mr. Olhout.
At the February board meeting, Mr. Florence, who's here today, We presented a plan for ongoing usage of space in this building for the robotics team, consisting mainly of the former cafeteria, kitchen, and adjacent spaces, as well as one of the former art classrooms. The details of this proposal were included in the February board minutes. The proposal also includes a monthly fee of $250 paid by the robotics team to defray utility costs. Mr. Florence also recognizes that approval to use this space remains contingent upon its availability pending board and community decisions regarding the future of the Happy Hollow property. Administration requests a motion and vote on the proposed robotics usage plan as presented in February.
Can I get a motion, please? Moved by Mrs. Moss and second by Dr. Springer. Any questions for Mr. Olhow?
They build a chiller.
Mr. Florence? Can you build a chiller?
The answer is yes.
Yeah, I think it's great. And our teams actually recently got a lot of awards in the state, and so proud. And it's great that they can use our buildings. It just makes so much sense.
And just as a point of clarification, I know we also heard from Mr. Pettit, their director of bands, and the understanding is that Mr. Florence and Mr. Pettit will work well together in this space. Is that a true
Yes,
statement?
I know they've been talking and
Yes.
working that out.
We're anticipating a fantastic Trojan horse from you, sir. Yes. All right, any other questions for Mr. Olhoff on this? Okay, all those in favor, please?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. Move on to item 12, field trips. Mr. Dr. Reiner.
We have two overnight field trip requests, the annual 5th grade trip to Camp Tecumseh. I'm really excited to go check that out. I hear great things about that. And so that is by May 2nd to May 5th. It's an overnight trip. There's two groups going. And then we have the music department has submitted a request to travel to New York City from May 31st to June 3rd. They'll be having performance opportunities in New York. They'll also attend some professional musicals, and they'll focus on team building. It's my recommendation that the board approve these two field trips.
Can I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Schott.
Second.
Second by Mr. Karpik. Any questions?
I have one, Margaret here, yes. It appears that the 5th grade camp has been modified somewhat this year. It's just because of COVID or scheduling or?
I think scheduling and staffing, and just
Okay.
making sure we have, for those who don't know, we only take staff to attend the camping days that are needing to both cover the nights and the daytime teaching there. And that means we also have staffing needs in our buildings because we take some of our staff out. So with some issues and difficulties, we really felt like it was time to look at that carefully. And so we are going to spend 2 days, the second one being longer than a regular school day, instead of 2.5 days.
And I know field trips were a question at various points this year, so thank you for kind of hustling once we were all approved to still put a 5th grade camp together this year. So.
It's Mr. Harmon and our 5th grade teachers who are doing a lot of that work, and he's our camp director, and so they are the ones that are putting all the pieces together, but it's coming together a little bit closer to the end than everyone likes. It was making everyone a little nervous, but we're getting there. It's going to be beautiful. I just hope that the weather holds out. That's always the one thing everyone wishes for.
Well, it's a very valuable field trip experience for our 5th graders and one that they'll remember entire life. So I appreciate it.
I so would like to encourage you to make sure Dr. Greiner has a role in a skit.
Oh, I'm going to be performing
You could-
right there alongside.
You could work that out. Mrs. Soros, that would be fantastic. Just gonna put that out there. Okay. Thank you, thank you. All right, all those in favor of having all of the wonderful field trips happen? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. We'll move on to emergency authorization to hire Dr. Greiner. Hire, period, with Dr. Greiner.
So this is the annual emergency authorization request, opportunity for me to hire in what we would call an emergency situation or time where time is of the essence. So during May through the start of school, this would be where I would give administrative approval, and then it would appear very quickly on the next board agenda under personnel report. So I would recommend that the board approve emergency authorization to hire.
Can I get a motion, please?
So moved.
It's moved by Dr. Springer.
Second.
Second by Mr. Marley. Discussion, questions? This is normal. We do this every single year. Lets us be nimble and hire great teachers. Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. Item 13, the personnel report. Dr. Greiner.
You saw the personnel report in your board packet. It is my recommendation that you approve the personnel report as presented.
Can I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Marley.
Second.
Second by Mr. Karpik. Questions? Comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. Item 14, accounts payable, Mr. Olfa.
We ask your approval for accounts payable. The payroll upload $1,034,535.98. Payroll deductions paid in March, $464,339.10. WLCSC claims, $1,388,247.48. VVEC claims, $66,331.85, and no construction claims this month, for a total of $2,953,454.41.
Okay, can I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Marley, second by Mrs. Austin. Questions? Dr. Yin?
Yes, and I have a question about the payment for the financial consultant. And so we will have a new one. And Dr. Greiner said you will update the contract for.
Right, so we have a contract with Ross Sloat, though Mr. Sloat has finished the end of his time with us actively working. He still has got a contract in place, and he'll provide some ongoing consultation as needed, as Dr. Greiner needs. And so I haven't had the opportunity to do so, and we had no vote about it this month, but I will, in my weekly notes, put out some information, kind of the history and information about that. But he does have a contract to work out, and there's a memo of understanding as well. So there's just some detail there to work through. It's typical school contract things. There's nothing unusual there, really.
Yeah, I understand. So the contract is like a daily payment or by hour or by month? So I wonder.
May I ask why? I want to make sure we have a constructive conversation, and I'm not sure this meeting is the place to have it. And so I'm wondering what your what the nature of your question is. I'm trying to.
Yeah, because we are going to have a new financial consultant, so we had one. Then I know Mr. Sloat is retiring, so then just try to figure out. They have overlap.
So your question is the overlap question.
For the two overlap months, 3.
So to be clear, that the contract that we signed this week, or this meeting that you read through for Mr. Reuter, that is for an independent financial evaluation, not for ongoing financial consultation. So we felt it was very important, and Dr. Reiner and I and the board officers had a lot of conversation about really wanting our community to understand our financials and wanting us to have an independent verification of where they are. And so that is what the contract with Mr. Reuter is for. So it's a short-term independent review. And then if we determine that we want to have an ongoing relationship with Mr. Reuter for regular financial services, that will be another vote that we will bring to this group. So they're two separate transactions. So we need to wind out our contract with Mr. Sloat, and that's the information that I'll kind of go through the whole thing. Again, there was not an urgency to it really because we aren't voting on it tonight in any capacity, but there's not, if we begin a financial consultation with Mr. Reuter, if we vote to make that decision in the future, that would not overlap with Mr. Sloat's, the end of Mr. Sloat's contract. So we've been kind of intentional at timing. Am I saying that fairly?
That's correct.
Yeah.
It's the fiscal plan that Mr. Reuter is currently developing.
Fiscal plan, that's the word I'm looking for. Thank you.
Yeah, which
So-
involves the review.
Correct, yes. So that's the review period, independent, fresh eyes. It's always a healthy thing to have. And then we'll make a decision in the future. But that doesn't change the end of Mr. Sloat's contract. That's already a finalized contract. Does that help explain?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks. But I have another question about the assistant superintendent search. I wonder whether I will have an opportunity to ask that, or when
Let me clarify something regarding Mr. Sloat's contract. He's been an outside consultant, and we've paid him by the hour for his work. We don't pay him a flat fee. It's been an hourly rate all along. And if he continues to consult or has some consulting in the next couple of months, we pay him by the hour.
Right, that's true. So this is payables, and I want to make sure that we wrap up accounts payables, but then
I'm going to report out that, so
he'll report about the assistant superintendent when he does his report.
Okay, yeah, what Karen said, Dr. Springer said, clarified my question, and she said Mr. Slot was paid by hour. So that's helpful because, I'm just wondering, and,
We're going to continue to see Pine Mesa LLC, Mr. Sloat's billing, we'll continue to see that out for the next coming months. It doesn't abruptly stop, though. We have an arrangement.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
Because for the past months it was 13,000, so I thought, okay, not sure about the coming months.
Yeah, it was just a matter of prioritizing what was on this meeting's agenda, and then when I send out my weekly notes to the board for information, then that will be in the next go-round. Is that fair? Okay. All right, all those in favor of paying our bills? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. Information to the board. Just as an update to the board, I just received updated information from Steve Horton with the ISBA today that, as we've requested, they support our community with a prospective board member training. They would like to do that. They've confirmed they will do that here in West Lafayette. Looks like that will be in June, but we're working towards that kind of perspective. Anybody who's interested, and I believe that will be a regional training site. And so that's a good opportunity for us to make sure that prospective candidates know what they're getting into. That's always a good idea. And then also a reminder of some upcoming training, leadership training with Virtuoso, which is connected to our diversity, equity, and inclusion initiative. That is this week on the 6th for those that are coming to that. And we have an ISBA regional meeting on April the 18th. Board and superintendent reports. Dr. Reiner, would you like to start with that?
I would be happy to
All right.
begin with the report. I have 3 things to report out today. I'd like to report out on a COVID update, assistant superintendent search update, and a 90-day transition plan update, kind of what I presented to the board earlier, and where I'm at and where I'm going with that. So let's start with the COVID update, especially given the fact that the board wanted us to monitor after spring break based on going mask optional. The week before spring break, we had 3 COVID cases reported, and those cases were from the high school. And then over the past 2 weeks following spring break, to date, we've had 0 cases reported to the schools. Regarding the assistant superintendent search, as you're aware, the position was posted, and it's posted on the corporation website, the Indiana Department of Education website, and this Indiana School Board Association website. The posting will remain through April 15th, and we'll screen applicants, and the goal is to screen and then interview April 19th and 20th. I'm putting together an interview committee, which involves representatives from central office, board officers, building principals, and then teacher representatives as well. The 90-day transition plan, as you know, I met with each individual board member and had dialogue with each individual board member to gain an understanding of each individual's perspective so that I understand how we come together as one collective board to better serve the board effectively. And then I've also been focusing on visiting classrooms and trying to share that in Friday notes, the very great things that I'm seeing during the school visits and individual classroom visits. I've met with principals and directors individually, very similarly to how I met with each individual board member, so that I can gain individual perspectives, understand how I can best serve each individual leader within the district. And then I've been attending First Saturday meetings to gain an understanding of our community and members that attend those First Saturday meetings. Where did I leave off? Okay, there we go. I continue to find opportunities to meet with individual community members. This is the part I wanted to point out. I've met a couple of times with Mayor Dennis. I've met with Chief of Police Harris, Mr. Gary Lehman with Purdue. I've also met with President Daniels, and he's extended an opportunity to reach out to him anytime to continue to develop partnerships, which will certainly be a goal of mine and the administration leaders. I've met a couple of times with the area superintendents of Tippecanoe, both Dr. Handback and Mr. Huddle, and we will actually be meeting here in April, the new restaurant that the cooperative is opening. Yes, and so we're very excited. That'll be our next meeting place to collaborate and understand what the cooperative offers with regard to food service development for our students. We are focusing on reestablishing the community council. That will begin again next school year, and we will, over the summer and into fall, continue to review this strategic plan, what has been the areas of focus, what needs additional attention, and what is no longer relevant within that plan. And then that will become a guiding document when we come together as a board and administrators in our board retreat, which will be at the beginning of August. And in that retreat, we will include board members, principals, and directors. That concludes my report. I invite any questions.
Anybody, did you have a question, Dr. Yee?
Do have some. And first, thank you so much, Dr. Greiner, for sharing all the information to increase the transparency. I really appreciate that. And so I do have some questions. So for the COVID numbers, and it's great that we are still tracking it. I got I think many of us probably got a parent email. Some of them wish that, you know, even though the state doesn't mandate us to report those numbers, but it's great that we are still tracking it. Some parents wish to have that number like weekly so they can decide whether they still want to pick up their kids from lunch or things like that. Is it possible at all just to say, hey, Wheaties, Willis, and the high school, how many cases this week, and to kind of share that information if we have it anyway? So I wonder how possible it is to share that, since some parents are wondering, and even like whether kids should still wear masks or not. You know, if they know, oh, there's no cases for 2 weeks. Now we can do mask free. Now people kind of are in the dark, not sure how many cases we have. We have so many, you know, the good news should be shared.
Sure.
So if possible at all, I don't know how complicated it is, but.
Let me think about that and even I'll work with Mrs. Julie, and she collects that information for me at the end of each week. But let me think about that, what that might look like.
Thank you. Yeah, you do, for all my questions, you don't have to answer it right away, but I just like to share my thoughts. And for the assistant superintendent,
That's what I was thinking,
Yeah,
so I'll talk
okay.
with, Mrs. Julie and even
Sorry, Dr. Yin.
Mr. Hampton. Thank you.
Go ahead, Dr. Yin, thank you.
no problem. Yeah, for the assistant superintendent search, and I understand that, first of all, I really appreciate that your search committee include, besides the officers, the board officers, you also have the central staff, office staff and the building administrators and the teacher representatives. I really appreciate that. Again, I wonder whether I can serve on it as well. Because frankly speaking, my PhD, the program I graduated for my PhD is curriculum and instruction. I do have that training and have been doing research in this field. And I do data analysis for my job, and I teach data analysis. I just feel for this position, for this particular person, and I have the knowledge and experience to evaluate. And I just, I'm not like trying very hard to serve on the legal one, because frankly, I don't have that much knowledge on that part. But for this assistant superintendent, I really feel I have knowledge to share, and I wish I can serve on it and to share my input. And again, you don't need to answer my application right away, but something to consider.
Dr. Yin, if I could answer, you've been so honest about your surprise about the amount of work that we have to do as board members, and so clear about the difficulties you face in your very difficult personal schedule and completing work and being able to respond in a timely manner. We're going to stay with the board officers for this search. And as I explained to the full board in my notes, after the preliminary round and Dr. Greiner's received the feedback from the board officers and all of those he's invited to be on the committee, we will bring the finalist resumes and documentation to the board in executive session so that we can review them all together and give Dr. Greiner additional input. But I have to respect what you have said and what you have shown with regard to your very difficult personal and professional schedule. So we'll leave the schedule or the structure of the search committee as it is.
Yeah, I can be, because I work from home, I can be as flexible as possible. And regarding schedule, another thing is I checked the board policy. Actually, I didn't find that the board officers have to be the person who look for the assistant superintendent, just for
Dr.
information. Maybe I missed it, but
I'm really trying to be very respectful and collegial, but you're not giving me a lot of choice here to just say you've had difficulty completing the work of a board member as it is, and been non-communicative with me when I've needed to reach out to you for input. And you've been very,
Wait. I don't take that. I have been working very hard.
Perhaps, no, I agree, you've been working very hard, and we can have a further conversation about that if you would like to, but I'm not going to extend the workload on you at this point in time.
I mean, you need to clarify that. You mean I didn't complete the work? What do you mean? This is a accusation. I don't take that, sorry.
I'm not sure that this, I'm not sure that this is a conversation for a public board meeting, but there have been numerous occasions where you've had difficulty responding in a timely manner or difficulty responding at all to text messages asking you for a phone conversation. So I know that your schedule is very busy, and I know that you've told us that your schedule is very busy and that it's been very difficult to read the board documents in a period of time. In fact, our central office staff have opened that window even wider and earlier to make it easier. I really, truly am trying to not do this in a public setting, and I'm very sorry.
I really feel this is accusation. I don't accept this. This is a lie. And I have been carefully review all the packets and I ask all the clarification questions. I help the school districts in many ways. Now you say I didn't complete my duty. This is not acceptable.
Dr. Yin, I do not.
Yes, I didn't take your offer to meet you privately before the Christmas only because you have been hostile to me. I didn't feel comfortable to meet with you privately. That's why I didn't meet. That doesn't mean I didn't finish my duty. Oh my God.
Dr. Yin, this might be an opportunity where perhaps you and I could share my perspective and you could share your perspective with me and we can try and sync those things up and see if we can't come to some common understanding. I'm not sure that we're using our colleagues' time well in this meeting to try and resolve that difficulty, but I'd be happy to share my perspective and I'm very open to hearing yours. So I want to be very clear in saying I have absolutely zero doubt that your intentions and motivation and work for our students and our school corporation are wonderful and I am grateful for them as I know the other members of the board are. I will transition, please, to committee reports. Do you have anything to report, Mr. Carpet?
I do. Again, I was in two, and Dr. Springer will report on discussion. I was involved also with, I'm on the West Lafayette Foundation board with Mr. Schott, and Wendy provided us also with some feedback or some recap on some things, Wendy being the executive director of the West Lafayette Schools Education Foundation. We had a fundraiser on this past Saturday night, or I guess a week ago Saturday, 180 guests. Several things were from a fundraising standpoint, including setting the stage endowment for the arts, teacher grants, the backpack program through videos. And it was neat that the West Lafayette seniors put those together. Corey Adams, Zane, and it's Shalaby also really put together a nice video presentation, and that was terrific. Also, this week we'll have 6 alumni and 1 former educator who will be inducted into the West Lafayette Wall of Pride. Honorees include my high school classmate, Munji Bawendi, Ingrid Eagley, class of 87, Vanessa Gedney of 96, Danny Johnson of 80, Chris Parenti of 89, and Bob Williamson of 64. And of course, Coach Gordon Straley, former teacher, coach, and administrator, will be recognized posthumously. And Wall of Pride honorees will be visiting classes on Friday. We'll have an event on Thursday night as well with them. And West Lafayette juniors and seniors will attend a convocation with the Wall of Pride honorees on Friday afternoon. That's it for me.
Thank you, Mr. Marley.
No updates tonight.
Mr. Schott.
Mr. Carpet gave a great summary from Foundation. Just want to give a tip of the cap to Wendy, and I know she'd be quick to pass the credit to the members to put on the fundraiser. It was an outstanding event all the way around. I think everyone had a good time. I think some good money was raised, which is awesome to see. And then the policy, continue to meet about every other Thursday morning on that. And again, just hats off to Dr. Springer for leading us through that. It's quite a process, but very educational.
Dr. Springer.
No, we're working our way through the updates. We're almost finished with the spring 2021 updates. We had 2 special updates in May and June. And then the fall 2021, we got to keep pushing, get going, or keep progressing on those. And what happens is with changes in federal and state law, Neola will incorporate that into our into updated policies, and then we get that information and we compare it with our policies and decide what's best for our school corporation. Yeah, so anyway, we continue with that. And so for each monthly meeting, you'll see additional policy updates. Next month will be very lengthy, and this is to do, well, we'll talk about that later. Enough. Park Board. West Lafayette Parks and Rec 5-year master plan update. It's posted online. It's at westlafayetteparks parksplan.com. If you want to read a 149-page document, it's there for you. And if you still want to comment on it, that's available. There have been many community meetings, surveys throughout the past 3 or 4 months. It's still open for comment. It won't come before the park board until maybe May for final approval. Tommy Johnston Park is being upgraded and new equipment is going in this spring. Shelter reservations are open, and it's been a brisk business, so well, it appears that 2022 is going to be a busy summer season with shelter rentals. Board teacher discussion at the March 24th meeting, we discussed, 1, the dual platform instruction committee. That first meeting will be in early May. We talked about the possibility of e-learning days for the 2022-23 snow makeup days. More discussion will occur on that as we work with the dual platform instruction committee. And then Mr. Olhott talked about the ESSER-funded summer Jumpstart program that we passed tonight, and also the corporation-wide mental health therapist position that we approved tonight.
Mrs. Austin.
The Public School Foundation meeting is tomorrow, Tippecanoe Academy meeting is tomorrow, and the Cupcake Run registration went live today, and there's more information at psftc.org. And the legislative session is over, thank goodness, and we will be attending the previously mentioned ISBA regional meeting on April 18th, and Dr. Greiner gave the community council update. So.
Dr. Yin, anything to report?
I'm not assigned to any committee which is active right now, so I don't have any committee report update. But I do want to ask one more question following what Dr. Greiner shared, and which is the Saturday feedback session. And I heard from many parents that they really appreciated this opportunity to share their concerns and make suggestions. And also they particularly appreciate Dr. Greiner's attitude, which is not defensive. And Dr. Greiner has been very willing to listen and to the public input, and people appreciate that. And also, I wish to take this opportunity to share with the community that Dr. Greiner has been routinely share good news on Twitter, and I hope more people, whoever listen to this meeting or read the report, can follow Dr. Greiner's Twitter account and to see all the great things our schools have been doing, the teachers, students, parents, and all the community, have been achieved and have achieved, which is great, and we should be so proud. And so I do have one thing about the feedback session, and from the parents, and some people are wondering, even though we shared our feedback, then how about the follow-up? Then when will we hear about so where will this information go? And for example, people wish to have more flexibility for the mass placement and in high school, then when will they hear back about this concern? And just a general, again, you don't have to answer this. I just want to share what I heard, and so, we know, everybody knows.
Thank you for that feedback. And we're going to put together a study committee and really involve high school administration, high school teachers, get the assistant superintendent hired and make that a priority to review K through 12. One of the people in the audience or at the meeting had stated something that really resonated with me, and that was, it was a 10 to 15 year issue. And so I really want to review this very carefully, involve stakeholders so that we can make sure that the decisions that we make, we have a full understanding of what we're dealing with, and then maybe look even at if we're going to make any kind of changes in addition to working with the staff that are involved in making such decisions, that we also understand what other corporations are doing that may be doing it differently, to make sure that if we change something, we change it in a way that we can support with data.
Yeah, okay, thank you. That would be very helpful. Also, I think this might not only be, issues related to the high school, and so compared with some neighboring schools, for example, TSC, and even from elementary schools, we don't have that much flexibility as they do. And so to some degree, that can be an equity issue as well, because right now, my two older ones, on the mass cons team. And frankly speaking, almost all the kids who are on the mass cons team are, kids of professors, Purdue professors. And I wish to see more kids who don't necessarily have the family resource to get some extra training and at home from private teachers, those things, and then they get that support from school. And I really wish we can provide more support to all the kids rather than let some of the kids rely on their family resource and to get the extra help, then eventually excel, like a kind of do much better than other kids. And I really feel eventually that can be an equity issue. So
Yes.
If we look at this, probably we can invite teachers from different levels and to work on this together, and also learn from peers, TSC, and they have some apps for kids to learn some advanced math if they pass some lower level. And just there are many things we can learn. I hope people can be more open-minded. Again, I'm not complaining anything, but always I feel everybody can improve all the time, and including myself. And so it doesn't hurt to see whether there are better ways to do things, and so to help more kids. And also, like earlier I mentioned the after-school program, and I feel we have the resources, especially some kids who are willing to help some other kids. And if we can make a good use of all the resources we have, then we can do even better. So for me, and it's very important for those kids who don't have the resource to success. Frankly speaking, one of the major motivation for me to serve on this is I hope I can help more kids, not only my kids. So that's, yeah. Thanks.
Thank you. I appreciate the input.
Okay, so we'll move on to communication from the audience. I know that you were interested in speaking. So typically, you're not typically here, so I don't want to call you out. We have a sign-up sheet that's at the entrance, but if you do have something you want to speak to us, I'm happy to have you do so at this time.
Yeah, I'm Dave Kusick, and I didn't know I wanted to say anything until I heard some of the discussion.
Well, if you want to come on up to the microphone, we'd be happy to hear you, or it's non-agenda item time, so.
I would just like to know whether the public is going to have any input on the core values that I guess Mr. Schreiner is putting together and all that before the board actually decides and blesses the core values.
I don't know, thank you for your question. I don't know the exact process there, but I appreciate that feedback, and we'll see if there's a way to incorporate that in some way. Thank you. Okay, moving on, future meetings, regular board meeting, Monday, May the 2nd at 6:30, right here in this room. Upcoming dates of interest, the first Saturday feedback is Saturday, May 7th at 9 a.m., and that is in the community room at the Fresh Time Market. Information for the public, the board documents and audio from this meeting will be posted on the website within 7 to 10 days following the board meeting. There's been some question to me about why that is 7 to 10 days. The answer is we typically have that information up earlier. Some of the information has to be redacted legally, and some of it we like to plan for a worst case scenario. So should there be a technology issue and a personnel issue and all the issues, we are guaranteed to be up within 7 to 10 days. So with that, I'd like a motion to adjourn.
Approved by Mrs. Austin, second by Mr. Marley. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we are adjourned.